Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel where I talk about bunches of information and things that people create or myself have created or options involving Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. Most of my content is in fact homebrew, so it is not Adventures League material. If anything is, I will specifically state such. So today I'm going to talk about bosses. Specifically, the bosses that you create for your players as the big, bad, evil guy. Because that's too many words to say, and BBEG is also really a mouthful, we're just going to call them bosses. So, what we are going to talk about today are the cool tropes that you would see in video game bosses and how that can correlate to Dungeons and Dragons bosses. And what I mean by that is, um, for example, the old classic flashing yellow and red when something is close to dying. Things like that. Those really common tropes. And today I have five of them that I'm going to talk about today that you could possibly iterate into your bosses for your players to make that big bad evil guy really feel like a big video game boss, right? So now the power level for all these varies drastically. So you might want to do a little bit of playing around with them. These are not concrete in any way, and every single one of these does in fact make the encounter harder. So if you were going to be throwing a challenge rating 10 um, boss at them, you may want to choose a different one that's maybe 7 or 8, um, depending on which one of these you're going to do. Obviously, with they all have a theme of what they should have been put on. So if you go against that theme and grab something else, it might create a broken combination. So just be wary of that before you apply this in your games. So the first one we're going to talk about is which one, which happens a lot in the Dark Souls series, which part of the inspiration has gone to that. But there is always the magical hats situation where you're fighting a boss and it will create clones, but you're not sure if the clones that created one of those is the real one, and vice versa. So the way we can apply that is at the end of the boss's turn, it can create 2 duplicates in a range of squares. We'll just say within 30 feet. And then secretly has the option to swap places with any of those duplicates. So the boss could be standing here, and he puts a duplicate over there and a duplicate over there. He can choose to stay there or swap with one of the others, but either way, the players don't know where he ends up. And you could even just roll a die behind a screen just to make it look like you're choosing where he's going to go randomly, but then just choose where he goes. Now, specifically to make it non-broken, the duplicates can perform a reaction if an opportunity attack arises, but they need to dissipate at the start of his turn. They're basically only there to soak up blows while it's not the boss's turn. So the duplicates are also extremely weak. So the way I did it is the duplicates have 5 less armor class than the original, and -5 to all of their saving throws, as well as only have a single hit point. That way, if someone can tear through a bunch of them or just fireball the 3 of them, they'll immediately know where the real is and can just mow down on him. But if you have a lot of single target party members, they might find both of the wrong ones, and that's 2 attacks absorbed by the clones, so that your boss is safe. Now you could also make this recharge on a 5 or 6 on a d6 roll. That way he doesn't use it every single turn. In that case, I don't think I would adjust the challenge rating at all. It would just make the fight all the more interesting because at that point it's also a puzzle of, oh, which one's the real one, as well as a boss battle. So just a way to flavor that up a little bit. So that's the end of the first one. The second one we're going to come across is the sweet spot. Now this is really the video game boss territory here, where there's a certain way you need to fight the boss to get into its weaknesses. So the way I had it is you roll 2 1d8s on the boss's first turn, and you correlate to a chart below, um, as follows: 1 through 8. Acid, cold, fire, force, lightning, poison, psychic, thunder. It is the 8 in alphabetical order. It's the same 8 if you want to look at the spell Chaos Bolt from Xanathar's Guide to Everything. It's the same chart. Now, the reason you roll 2 1d8s is the first one becomes the boss's extra resistance, but the second one becomes the boss's vulnerability. Now, he can't have the resistance and vulnerability be the same thing, so if you would get the same number, just roll again and make it so that you have 2. The boss deals an additional 1d6 damage of whatever his current resistance is, and on his following turn, you roll a new 1d8. The previous vulnerability, the previous resistance becomes the new vulnerability, and then he gets a new resistance that isn't that same vulnerability. For example, say you roll and you get fire and thunder. All right, well, he gets resistance to fire damage and he deals additional fire damage, but thunder damage is his vulnerability. So next turn, his fire automatically moves to be the vulnerability spot, and you roll a new number that isn't fire to become his new resistance and its new additional damage. The reason you want to have the resistance and that bonus damage become a vulnerability is because that lets the players know if they get hit and they take lightning damage, next turn they want to use lightning damage because that is its current vulnerability, because they figured it out from the previous turn if they got hit. You might want to role play this one up a little bit instead of just showing them the mechanic. Like with which one, as soon as they realize that there are 3 of them, they're gonna figure it out really quick. Whereas this one might not be so easy to figure out. So kind of really play it up that maybe the color of the weapon that they're using changes accordingly to the current resistance or vulnerability, either way. But that's that fun little, oh, this is the time you want to unload with that, whatever. When he has the resistance to fire, maybe not hit him with the fireball, but when he's got the vulnerability, oh, slap it on him. So next on we have is Hive Mind. It might sound to be similar to the Witch one or the duplicate, but you'll see how it is very different. The way this one is different is this one has to have 3 or more of the same exact boss. And it needs to be exactly the same as far as hit points, armor class, saving throws, abilities, movements, resistances, immunities, conditions, all that stuff. They have to be exactly the same because the only thing that's different is the hit points, and the hit points are actually shared between them. So if your boss should have 120 hit points, they all instead have 360 hit points. But if any one of them gets damage or multiples get damage, it takes from the whole pool. And now what that does is it makes sure that you can't pick on one at a time, or you could, but you can't take one out of the fight before taking on a second one. So they can't just focus on one, mow it down, and then, all right, now we got 2 left. Focus on one, mow it down. All right, now we got 1 left. But the difference with the Hive Mind is once the total pool ends up being equal to or less than what one single one would have, all but one of them immediately die, right? So let's say, for example, that 120. So if each one has 120, the whole pool is 360. Once it reaches 120, all but one of them dies, and that one that's left gets stronger. Um, how stronger it gets is completely up to the challenge rating and your party members. But for example, it could have 2 additional armor class, +2 to all of its saving throws, give it a couple of temporary hit points, increased move speed, or additional damage, or a combination of them all, depending on where the situation goes. If the players were doing very, very well and no one took any damage, by all means, let them. They need a bigger challenge, so give that last one all of the abilities. Or if they're really hurting and you've really mowed them down, maybe just give it 1 or 2. The next one is very, very dangerous and should be should take extra care to make sure you put this on the right boss because it could be very, very powerful. And what this one is called is the Juggernaut. With this one, it's the stereotypical you have to wait in order to deal damage to it. Kind of like Sweet Spot. Um, but Juggernaut is. So this one you're going to need to do some math beforehand. And you need to figure out out of its total hit points where 25% of its health is, 50% of its health is, and 75% of its health is. So an easy way to do that is if it had 100 hit points, it would be 25, 50, 75. Very, very simple. And the reason for that is when it first goes from full to 75% hit points, it immediately stops and cannot take more damage. So as soon as, for example, of 100 hit points total, as soon as it gets to 75 or would go lower, it sets itself to 75, and then it is immediately immune to all the rest of the damage and effects that would be applied to it until its turn starts. So it could do nothing, by the way, if the very last action in the turn, right before the boss's turn, is what sets it to this. Then it's a wasted ability. But it's probably not going to happen 3 times because, yes, you guessed it, it's going to happen again at 50% and then again at 25%. So you have to take care of 25% of its health separately, right? So you can't completely just mow down the boss in one single turn. It's impossible. Minimum 4 turns, right? 25%, 50%, 75%, full kill. And what I mean by immune to all damage and effects, I mean everything. It can't get disadvantage on anything. It automatically passes all saving throws and takes no damage. It can't be knocked prone. Everything that could affect it in a negative way doesn't. But as soon as its turn starts again, that goes all out the window and it's a regular boss battle again. But then you do it again at 50 and then 25%. So that's the Juggernaut. The big force of they have to break down its magical protections in order to actually damage it. And then finally, which is no surprise, you probably are already doing this in your campaigns. And this last one is called Not My Final Form. So you can guess what that does. The way you can have so much fun with this, by the way. Even if it's just resetting the hit points of the boss once they bring it to a certain point, and it just comes back and has access to spells, or if it was a spellcaster, at a certain point it turns into a dragon or something like that, and then they have to fight it in its final form. It fixes a lot of tropes, and I think that rounds out all of the really major boss battles. So what I did is I made it after 50% or more health is missing, and not because I was going to make it so that it was once they go to 50%, they stop there, but that's kind of like what the Juggernaut does. So I didn't want to step on the toes of that one too much. Once 50% or more health is missing, you roll a 1d6 and then consult the chart below, which I will put in the description of in the video of all the ones that I'm currently going through here, this whole list. That way you can take it and use it in your campaigns. No problem. Go ahead and use it. Have fun with it. So I have 6 different results here. So you roll a 1d6 and then, whatever it is, it does that. So on a 1, it gains +2 to its strength, gains 20 temporary hit points, and then +2 to its armor class and all of its saving throws. So it just gets stronger, it gets tougher. Really a bad scenario. If you get a 2, you get +2 to dexterity, an additional +15 to its movement speed, and now has the ability to gain dodge as a bonus action. So it is much faster and much harder to hit now. If you roll a 3, you get +2 to its constitution, and it heals to full hit points, so that new hit point maximum will be affected by that, and gains a +1 bonus on all of its attack rolls. And damage. So you basically got to fight it over again, but now this time it's tougher and stronger, and you have to go all the way back through its hit point total again, which is also higher. If you roll a 4, it explodes with energy outward, and it deals 1d6 damage per challenge rating to all creatures within 30 feet, and they have a con save equal to its challenge rating for half damage. So if it's a little guy, it's going to do very little damage and also be very, very easy to resist. It's necrotic damage, by the way. I didn't, let me put that in here. I realized I didn't state which damage it was. There. And then if you roll a 5, what happens there is its size increases by 1 category, which gives it a +4 to all damage rolls, but a -1 to its armor class, but then you also double its current hit points, which could be a full heal if he was exactly at 50%, but is most likely going to be a good chunk. And then finally, if you roll a 6, it gains advantage on all of its saving throws. And if it ever succeeds a saving throw, it gains 10 temporary hit points. So some cool little final forms that you could do. You can also have so much fun with this. You can make it retain spell slots if you're playing a caster, or there's just so many things that you can do. But again, you really, really have to be careful about how powerful the ability you're going to give the boss is when you send them against their players. Like I said, all of these abilities, I would at least lower the challenge rating, whatever you thought you were going to throw at them, by 2 or 3 levels, and then apply this to that new monster. And have it be a more challenging, even challenge is what I was going to say. So if you have 5 level 10s, maybe stick one of these onto a challenge rating 7 or something like that. I think that would be easy, and it would be a very, very fun video game-ish kind of trope that you could put into your 5th edition games. So there you go. Those are my thoughts. If you want to try these out, like I said, the link is not the link. The description is going to detail all of these so that you can easily put this into your own campaigns. And if you do, please send me a message or comment down below on how it went, and I'd love to hear how it goes. And if you want to make any suggestions about what my content has in the future, please leave a comment down below to help shape my channel in the future. I hope you guys have a fantastic holidays, whichever one you celebrate, which is fantastic. We live in America, and there's so many different religions out there. I don't want to offend anyone, so I hope you have a fantastic rest of the year and stay safe, and we'll see you next week. I hope you have a great time.